Guess who's back? It's Anton Mac with VGS, here talking about the Sony conference, or how should I put it, lack thereof? It felt very devoid of personality. It seemed like they just kind of threw out a bunch of trailers that they could have easily just put on GameSpot, IGN, YouTube, or just any service, rather than just kind of waste people's time showing us trailers of IPs that we already knew about. But let's talk a little more on it. So first off, they had a sweet musical intro. I guess there was some personality there. But then they went into Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So, not really much to it. It was mostly a story trailer, and the unfortunate thing was, for most of the trailer itself, there was no sound, or they were just having like a lot of sound issues, which kind of really took away from the experience. But from what I did gather, 2 leading females. That's fantastic. Good job, Naughty Dog, on being good job, Naughty Dog, on being progressive. But other than that, I don't know. I wasn't too hyped about it, but just time to kind of like preface that by, I'm gonna preface that by saying I was never really an Uncharted fan. I'm more of a Microsoft kid, so I stuck with those exclusives and didn't really get a PS3 until like close to the end of its lifespan, so not really much to say on that. But next up, we had Horizon Zero Dawn, let me read this right, The Frozen Wilds. I'm assuming that's going to be DLC, and if you've been following our channel for a while, we actually did a lot of... Don't you hate it when somebody calls you when you're trying to record a video? Alright, on to the next one. There was Horizon Zero Dawn: The Frozen Wilds. I'm assuming that'll be DLC, kind of elaborating on what they've already built on. If you've been following the Video Game Sophistry channel for a while, you've probably seen that we did a lot of videos on Horizon Zero Dawn, and in my opinion, it was actually one of the better games to come out this year. Brand new IP, female lead who actually, you know, felt like the role was written for her rather than just tossed in for the sake of being progressive. And the combat systems, enemies, all of that was fantastic. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with the Frozen Wilds. Spoiler alert, at the very end of the first game, we saw that, what's his name? The black guy with all the tech attached to him, Silvus, he was doing some nefarious things, actually getting, like, capturing the essence of the main antagonist of the first game. So hopefully, in this DLC, they actually elaborate more on what's happening in that story arc, which would be fantastic, because it really seems like they set up the end of the game to continue on, whether it be through DLC or maybe a second game. So hopefully the Frozen Wilds does touch upon that. Next up, we have Days Gone. Days Gone, I don't know, I'm a little apprehensive about. So from what we saw in the trailer, it's clear to see that it is obviously a zombie game that fits very much in the vein of something like Last of Us or State of Decay, where the outbreak has already happened, and this is years after civilization has kind of grown to, I guess, live amongst the walkers, zombies, whatever you may call them. So I do like that concept, because it's no longer an origin story of how it all happened. It's now, how do these people interact with each other, and how do they live throughout this epidemic. My one issue with it, though, is that it feels very much like every other game. It kind of feels like a carbon copy. Just throw in a zombie bear and zombie dogs, and suddenly you got a brand new game. From the trailer, what I did like was this ability, well, not ability, but just kind of the way you can take down different outposts, take down different enemies. For example, we see the character in the video actually put some explosives on the gate of the enemy outpost, and exploded the explosives, and all the zombies came rushing through the door, And as he was hiding, they decided to throw their focus toward, you know, the enemies, the actual, like, I don't know what they were, just bad guys in general. So that was cool. It can kind of lead to many different possibilities on how you're going to take down different enemies, how you're going to interact with the world, how you're going to actually do things and complete missions or complete objectives. So that seems kind of cool, but once again, Days Gone just seems very carbon copy of things that we've had for years already. Like, look at Last of Us. Last of Us was a great portrayal of life after the outbreak. And now Days Gone just seems kind of more of the same, just, I guess, a little more gruesome, a little more like gutty, where people just don't give a shit about each other and they're only doing it to survive, which, thinking about it now, is really basically just Last of Us. But hopefully that does turn out good. Next thing up was a surprise for me, because last time we actually saw a Monster Hunter game, I think was the PSP, like PlayStation Portable. But now we have Monster Hunter World coming out. For me, I'm a big Monster Hunter fan. Monster Hunter is a fantastic game. It's got a massive learning curve, and it's going to take you close to like 10-20 hours just to actually understand what's happening in the game before you can actually get to like end game content, which is what Monster Hunter really pushes you to do. Get your gear, get your weapons, get all of that stuff, and then move on to end game content. And now we're finally getting Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World, for kind of those who are uninitiated, has been out for a while, or has been announced for a while. We just didn't know if we were going to actually get an American release. But now, with this coming out, this is going to be fantastic. I'm stoked for it. And that kind of leads into the next game, Shadow of the Colossus. So, if you've watched the actual show that we do, like Dialogue Wheel, where we're actually in the studio talking about different topics that are currently, you know, big, I did mention a few times that I'm not a fan of the whole remake idea. Like, remakes are cool. I get to enjoy old games again on my fresh new system, but at the same time, that also means I'm spending, what, like $60, $70 on a game that I already got my enjoyment from. But my inner child can't, like, I don't know, my inner child is like gushing because Shadow of the Colossus is finally coming back out. And if you don't know, I'll play the trailer right now. Bam. Shadow of the Colossus is basically a game where you are one person who has to take down, obviously, these colossi, is that the plural? Where you take down these big bosses, and that's all there is. There's no, like, minor enemies or anything. You just go to these areas, and it's like solving a puzzle, where you have to find a way to be able to climb onto this boss, find their weak point, stab them, blah, blah, blah. Shadow of the Colossus is one of the few remakes that I actually think is worth it. For sure. Especially because it came out in the PS2 era. So there was a lot of people who never really got to experience it. I think it is totally worth it because it is very much a game that fits within the genres that I like. Something with action and this obscure story that kind of sits in the same realm as Dark Souls, where it's not exactly told and you have to kind of piece it together as you play. So I think Shadow of the Colossus for sure is worth a pickup once it does come out, if you haven't tried it yourself, or even if you have, pick it up again. Next, I'm not a fan of, another preface, I'm not a fan of PSVR or PlayStation Virtual Reality. I think that it's kind of a waste of time, if you get what I mean, because PSVR sits at that weird level where it is more, I guess it's cheaper than its other competitors, like the Vibe and oh my god, that's gonna kill Oculus Rift. So it's cheaper than its counterparts, but at the same time, the fact that it's cheaper kind of makes it a little more low res, and you can see that from the games that they actually announced. So on my screen I got Skyrim VR. Skyrim VR literally looks like something straight out of like the 360 PS3 days. Once again, the 360 PS3 days weren't that bad graphically. It's just that we've gotten to a point in 2017 when we're expecting these nice high-res textures, these facial animations, just anything of the sort. And the PSVR doesn't really, I guess, do that. It looks kind of janky. You could see the pixelation. That might just be me complaining and me being a spoiled gamer, but at the same time, there's an expectation and a bar that's already been set. And when you don't hit that bar, it doesn't exactly translate very well. But they got other games like Star Child, The Impatient, Monster of the Deed. Oh, Deep. Oh, I'm an idiot. Monster of the Deep. Final Fantasy 15. Oh my god. So, I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan. I love all the Final Fantasies. When Final Fantasy 15 came out, I literally played it twice. It is a fantastic game. It's got cool characters. Once again, it's not a perfect game, but it was something that I've been waiting for the past 10 years, back when it was called 13 Verses, that when it finally came out, I put in a lot of time. This Monster of the Deep Final Fantasy 15 business, if you didn't see, is basically a fishing simulator, because Noctis has I guess one of his skills when he's out in the wild is his ability to fish. I guess he did it with his dad or something for some exposition. But either way, he likes fishing. So now they are bringing a PSVR game called Monster of the Deep where you will play as Noctis fishing. I don't know. Why would anyone waste money on that? I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. I'm not going to drop, what, 40, 50 bucks just so I can, reel in a few fish. It just reminds me of that one game that came out on the original Wii where you played as Link and it was like you shot arrows. If I can find the video, I'll post it here. If I can't, then what are you going to do? And then two other games, Bravo Team and Moss. Bravo Team feels very, if I remember correctly, Rainbow Six-ish. So, generic shooter, pick up an auto rifle, start shooting people in the face, no big deal. Moss is a game where you play as a mouse. I don't know. Once again, leave it in the comments if you agree with me, but PSVR doesn't really have anything worth getting at this point. It's sad to say, because this is kind of a problem with PlayStation where, how do I put it? So, the PS Vita. PS Vita came to North America, and then they had a lot of good games, and it had potential to be such a great portable system, and then people didn't buy it, not because it wasn't a good system, but from my time working in retail, working at EB Games and stuff like that, it turns out that there just wasn't any games out. So why would I spend money on a PS Vita with like a handful of good games when I could just buy a 3DS that has a massive library and still more games coming out? So with that being said, the PS Vita's support in North America just went to basically nothing, and it seemed like Sony gave up on it. That's not to say in Asia it's not doing fantastic, because it seems in Asia they have a ton load of titles. A lot of people are using the Vita, which is fantastic. It's just North America, it seems like the Vita isn't doing well. Taking that and then, I guess, bringing it over to PSVR, it's starting to seem that PSVR isn't hitting the numbers that Sony wants, and I fear that, they're eventually going to be like, you know what, fuck it, we don't need the VR anymore, and just totally give up on it. Look what happened to the PlayStation Eye camera. Look what happened to the PlayStation Move. Those things were around, they were pushing it for a good year, and then nothing. They were just like, screw it, we're not going to deal with it anymore, whatever. And that's what I think is going to happen with the VR, because, let's be honest, nobody's buying it. It's cheaper than its competitors. It's still too expensive to drop money on, and the games aren't that great. Skyrim came out on 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, PC. Came out on 5 different systems already, and now you're gonna get people to buy it for the VR for what? So you can see yourself shout out Dragon Cast or smack someone in the face with a sword? I don't give a fuck. But moving on from that. So now here are the big hit titles. These are going to be like our triple A's coming out later this year or early 2018. First, God of War. God of War. I've spoken to this about with my friends and stuff like that. I'm, I guess, one of the, I don't know if I'm like the lower, like the smaller minority, but God of War looks fantastic. I am stoked for it because, first off, this isn't a game just about, you know, revenge, vengeance, whatever. I have a sword, I'm gonna go kill the gods of Atlantis. No, this is an actual, very story-driven game where you have this kid and you're teaching him whatever it may be. I don't know, whether it's becoming the God of War or teaching him how to be a man. I don't know what it is. Either way, it looks super dope. And as we saw from the trailer itself, it seems like the kid will join in combat now. Kind of like, I guess, what's her name? The girl from The Last of Us, where she would help out, she would stab people every once in a while, she'd throw you ammo, shit like that. That's what I think this kid will be doing. And the good thing is, it's not that we're not going to be waiting too long for this. It's coming out early 2018, so that's pretty good. And Norse mythology. I'm not versed in Norse mythology, but from what my friends have said, there's a lot of cool things that the God of War franchise can really sink their teeth into. So, you know, God of War looks really good. But next up, we got Detroit Become Human. I don't know. I don't know if other people are extremely stoked about it. I know a lot of people like a lot of my friends who are into video games too, even people who are at the show at VGS. Most people don't know what Detroit Become Human is. I guess it's a game where you could potentially be a robot and you have to make decisions on, you know, whether you want to be violent against people who are racist against robots, or the other way around, where you're just not, you're a pacifist and you're like, yo bro, don't be racist to me, don't try to lynch me. I don't know. I'm not a fan. It's not very intriguing. And it's not that there wasn't enough trailers to kind of, I don't know, pique my interest. There wasn't anything that caught my eye. Except for the fact that the main character from this trailer is the dude from Grey's Anatomy. Avery, I think that's his character's name. Yeah, my girlfriend watches that a lot, so I may partake myself. Anyways, next up, Destiny 2. Destiny 2, for the most part, we already know what we're expecting. We're expecting 3 new subclasses. We have a tonload new weapons. Just like last Destiny, there's going to be PlayStation exclusives. So there's going to be specific missions that are only for PlayStation, specific weapons that are only for PlayStation, and armor as well. I'm a fan of Destiny 2, and the fact that it's coming out on September 6th with potential betas, closed betas coming up in the next few months, I'm overly hyped for it. I really shouldn't be, because I might just be disappointed like last year or 2-3 years ago whenever the first game came out. But it looks pretty cool, and we finally got a first glimpse of the actual, like, the main antagonist of this game, which is some Cabal. If you don't know what Cabal are, let's say, Vikings of space who just feel the need to conquer anything they see and rape and pillage. I think just cut out the rape. But yeah, so we finally got a look at that. So that looks pretty good, and I'm pretty stoked about it. Now, in most E3s, if you watch most E3 conferences, you know that usually near the end of, you know, one's conference briefing, showcase, whatever you may call it, they usually save like the best for last. Like the thing they've been waiting to show off all fucking year, and they're giving it to you right now. And that's what this felt like. So, I can't remember his name, but the dude, I guess the representative who was on stage, comes out and he goes, "I'm glad you enjoyed all the trailers we showed you for the past hour and didn't give you any talking. We just showed you a bunch of trailers. We literally vomited out trailers for you to check out so you can get excited for your PlayStation. But now, a true PlayStation exclusive just for your eyes. and then he walks off stage, and now everyone's getting hyped. I'm getting hyped in my seat. My girlfriend's behind me. Well, she's not here, but at the time, she was sitting on the bed waiting for the potential announcement of Last of Us 2. And what did we get? Yeah, we got SpiderMan. Okay, I'm a comic book freak. I'm a comic book freak. I like comic books, Marvel, DC, Image, whatever it may be. Spider-Man was one of the very first comics I actually ever got from my dad. So he kind of holds a special place in my heart when it comes to superheroes. So I'm not saying I was disappointed in the fact that it was Spider-Man. I was just disappointed in the fact that that they didn't announce Last of Us 2. Especially with the hype going behind it, the rumors floating around for the longest time. But whatever, we got Spider-Man. So what's to say about it? We look at the trailer. It feels, comment if you think I'm wrong, obviously, but it feels very Batman-ish. You get what I mean? Like Batman Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. Like it feels very Batman in the sense that you will string combos together and then you'll jump from enemy to enemy while using different abilities. So in Batman's case, it was using the batarangs, it was using your grappling hook to pull people closer, and this one, it's Spider-Man shooting webs in people's faces. Oh, excuse me. Using his web to pull people in. Yeah, like I said, it feels very, very Batman-esque, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It seems like they've put their own type of spin on it, which is cool. And once again, if something isn't broken, like, why fix it? So I'm pretty stoked for that. I also like the fact that they use the environment very well, where they're fighting on the the building that's being constructed. So there's still like cranes, there's still 2x4s, there's still all kinds of construction stuff just lying about. And Spider-Man is actually, using it in combat, where he'll shoot his web at like a big crowbar and then spin it and it'll smack someone in the face, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. What else? Oh yeah, and there's a lot of quick time events, like a shit ton of quick time events. So I'm not a fan of QuickTime. I fucking hate QuickTime events. Mostly just because when I'm watching a cutscene of something happening, whether it be someone stopping a train or, people having an emotional moment, if it forces me to press X or square or whatever it may be out of nowhere, I usually don't have the controller in my hands. I usually leave it, on the side so that I can enjoy exposition. And in this one, no. Like, this one's just like, it seems like there's quick time events all the time where, Spider-Man is running up something and he has to stop it from falling on the people, all over the people on the street. So you have to mash X to attach it to the wall and stuff like that. So I think it's cool as long as there is a way to differentiate when quick time events are coming up and when you're just enjoying a cutscene. Because once again, a part of the immersion, in my opinion, is the ability to get lost in story, get lost in, characters interacting with each other and learning more about the world. When I have to pick up my controller and mash a button in the middle of something like that, it really takes me out of the experience and, somewhat ruins or lowers my enjoyment of the game itself. So hopefully there is on that. And once again, coming out 2018, so that's pretty good. And the little tidbit of Miles Morales at the very end, that's pretty sick. But that is everything for the Sony conference. I guess my overall thoughts at this point are that, I don't know, I wasn't impressed, Sony. I was expecting a lot more. At the same time, your last two conferences from 2016 and 2015 were great. You came out of the gates running, you showed us things that you wanted to do, and things that were coming out, whether it be PlayStation Pro, PlayStation VR, stuff like that. Those were great. This year, it really feels like you just shipped it in. you just was like, okay, open up the show, tell them you guys are great, gamers are awesome, we got games for you, and then walked off stage and showed me 60 minutes worth of trailers. I don't know, there could have been a little more personality, or if anything, just don't do the show. Don't waste my time and just post it on YouTube, because I was expecting more. Once again, that might be just because as gamers we expect too much. But what do you think? Do you think that you got your fill from the Sony conference, or were you like me and expecting something else? Comment down below. I'm Anton Mac with BGS.